two gardeners plant the same rows. 3 years later, one has a tidy 4-foot shrub. The other has something eating half the bed and leaning into the walkway. Same variety, same care. The difference is that one of them knew what the plant was going to become, and the other one trusted the tag. Mature size is the single most under-researched thing people check before buying a rose, and it's the mistake that's hardest to undo. You can fix bad soil. You can fix a watering habit. You can recover from a bad pruning year. You cannot easily fix a rose that's 4 feet wider than the space you gave it, not without fighting that plant every year for the rest of its life. And a rose you're fighting is a rose that never quite performs, because every heavy corrective cut costs you blooms and stresses the plant going into the next season. This one came directly from a viewer request, and it's a good one. Nobody makes a video about mature size because it isn't glamorous. It's also the decision that determines whether your bed looks intentional in 5 years or looks like it got away from you. Why the numbers on the tag are probably wrong. Let's start with why the numbers you're reading are probably wrong. Most size listings for these varieties originate from the breeder's own trial grounds in England, a mild maritime climate with long growing seasons and winters that rarely do serious damage to standing canes. If you're gardening in a colder zone, your winters knock canes back, sometimes hard, and the plant restarts each spring from a lower point. That means a rose listed at 5 feet might genuinely settle in around 3.5 for you. Gardeners in warmer regions often see the opposite problem. Plants meeting or exceeding the listed size, sometimes substantially, because nothing resets them over winter. In the mildest regions, a variety sold as a shrub can behave like a small climber within a few seasons. So the listed number isn't a lie. It's just measured somewhere that isn't your garden. What actually transfers across climates is the ranking. Which varieties are big and which are compact relative to each other stays consistent everywhere. A vigorous variety is vigorous in every zone. It just expresses that vigor at a different ceiling. That's what today is about, and it's why this list is useful no matter where you're gardening. The big ones: Generous Gardener and A Shropshire Lad. Let's start at the top of the range with the ones that will genuinely outgrow a standard border. Generous Gardener and A Shropshire Lad are both frequently sold as shrubs, and both behave like climbers given any encouragement at all. In favorable conditions, these can reach 8 to 12 feet or more against a support. Even grown as freestanding shrubs, they want serious room. Think 6 feet across minimum. Neither is a bad plant. Both are excellent and both are stunning, trained up a wall or an arbor where that vigor becomes the whole point. But if you put one in a 3-foot gap between two perennials, you have created a problem for future you. Why pruning won't save you. And here's the thing: people assume we'll save them. Pruning. It won't, at least not the way they're hoping. You can absolutely prune a large rose smaller, but a genuinely vigorous variety responds to hard cutting by pushing harder, and that's what vigor means. You end up in an annual cycle of cutting back growth the plant immediately replaces, spending your bloom potential on regrowth instead of flowers. Pruning shapes a rose and manages its structure beautifully. It does not permanently override its genetics, and treating it as a size control tool is how people end up with a plant that's both too big and blooming poorly. The one that surprises people: Gertrude Jekyll. Gertrude Jekyll is the one that surprises people most, and it's worth pausing on. It's usually sold and shelved alongside ordinary mid-sized shrubs, and the fragrance is so celebrated that most people buy it for the scent without ever checking the dimensions. Given a few good seasons, it's vigorous, upright, and capable of pushing well past head height, especially in milder climates where it can be trained as a short climber. Gardeners in colder zones often report it staying more manageable in the 4 to 5 foot range because winter keeps resetting it. Either way, it is not a front-of-border plant, and a lot of people find that out the hard way in year 3. Give it the back of a bed, a fence line, or a spot where a tall, upright plant is what you actually wanted. By the way, if you're finding this useful for planning, A-like helps this reach more gardeners before they buy. Back to it: Geoff Hamilton and a viewer's side-by-side. Geoff Hamilton belongs in this conversation too, and I want to credit a viewer for raising it. A comment from Gingerbread House pointed out that in their garden, Geoff Hamilton noticeably outgrew its bed, while Boscobel stayed much smaller in the same conditions. That's exactly the kind of side-by-side observation that's more useful than any catalog number, because it holds both plants to the same soil, the same climate, and the same season. Geoff Hamilton is a vigorous, arching, generously proportioned shrub that spreads outward as much as upward. It's beautiful, and it is not a small plant. If you want it, give it a corner or an open position where that arching habit can do what it wants. Crammed against a path edge, it just becomes something you're constantly cutting back and constantly apologizing for. The reliable middle. Now the reliable middle, which is where most gardeners should probably be shopping. Olivia Rose Austin, Princess Alexandra of Kent, Roald Dahl, and Desdemona all settle into roughly the 4-foot range in most gardens, give or take, with a rounded, well-behaved habit. These are the varieties that do what the tag says. They anchor a border without swallowing it, they don't need a support structure, and they don't require you to reorganize the bed around them in year 4. If you're new to growing roses, or you're working with a bed you can't easily expand, this group is the safest place to start. They're also the group least likely to produce that year 3 surprise, because their listed size and their actual behavior tend to line up closely across a wide range of climates. Lady of Shalott sits just at the top edge of that middle group. Nominally around 4 feet, it's vigorous enough that it often pushes past that in a good season, and its habit is twiggier and more arching than the others in the group, not a problem. Just give it a foot more room than you think it needs, and it rewards you, especially once it's had a full season or 2 to settle in. The compact end. At the compact end, Boscobel, Munstead Wood, and the Poet's Wife stay genuinely small, roughly 3 to 4 feet, upright, narrow, well-suited to containers, small beds, or the front of a border. Boscobel in particular is one of the most reliably contained varieties in the range, which is exactly what that viewer observed against Geoff Hamilton. Munstead Wood is a similar story, with the added benefit of one of the deepest colors and strongest fragrances available in a plant that size. The Poet's Wife stays low and wide rather than upright, which makes it a good edge plant where you want fullness without height, blocking what's behind it. Worth saying plainly, compact does not mean lesser. These varieties give up almost nothing in bloom quality, fragrance, or repeat performance. What they give up is scale, and scale is only an advantage when you have room for it. A well-placed 3-foot rose outperforms a cramped 6-foot one every single season. And if you're growing in containers, this group is essentially your only realistic option. A large variety in a pot spends its life root-bound and stressed, which shows up as fewer blooms and more disease. Diagnostic test, measure the actual gap. Here's your diagnostic test, and it's simple. Measure the actual gap, not the imagined one. Go out to the bed with a tape measure and record the real distance from the center of your planting spot to the nearest permanent obstacle. A walkway edge, a fence, an established shrub, a foundation wall. Then take the listed mature width for the variety you're considering, cut it in half, and compare. If the listed width is 6 feet, that plant claims 3 feet in every direction from its center. If your measured gap is 2.5 feet, that rose is going into a space that can't hold it, no matter how carefully you prune. Do this before you buy, not after the plant is sitting in your driveway. The tape measure is the cheapest tool in this entire hobby, and the one most likely to save you $100 in 3 wasted years. The year 3 mistake. And that leads to the mistake that costs people the most, planting to the size the rose is in the pot rather than the size it will be in year 3. A bare root or first-year plant looks small and lonely in a properly spaced bed. The instinct is to tighten everything up so it looks full immediately, and that instinct is what produces overcrowded beds 3 seasons later. Crowded roses have poor airflow, which drives black spot and mildew. They compete for water and nutrients. They're harder to prune, harder to inspect, and harder to deadhead. Almost every disease problem I see traced back to a structural cause starts with plants that were placed too close together at planting time. Year 3 is the number that matters, and it's worth understanding why. Year 1, the plant is establishing roots and putting very little into top growth. Year 2, it starts filling out but still looks modest. Year 3 is when a rose typically hits something close to its mature footprint, and that's the year people discover what they actually planted. If you space for year 1, you get 2 seasons of a bed that looks great, and then a decade of a bed that doesn't. The fix is uncomfortable but easy. Space to the mature size and fill the gaps temporarily with annuals or short-lived perennials for the first 2 seasons. You get a full-looking bed now and a healthy one later. Companion plants like catmint or lavender work well in that role and pull double duty on pest management. Pull them out as the rose expands into the space, and nothing about the bed ever looks like a mistake. So here's the short list. If you want big and you have the room, Generous Gardener, A Shropshire Lad, Gertrude Jekyll, and Geoff Hamilton will all deliver scale, but plan for it. If you want reliable and well-behaved, Olivia Rose Austin, Princess Alexandra of Kent, Roald Dahl, and Desdemona sit comfortably in the 4-foot range. If you're tight on space, Boscobel, Munstead Wood, and the Poet's Wife stay genuinely compact without giving up much in bloom or fragrance. Measure your real gap, have the listed width, and plant for year 3 instead of for today. That one habit will save you more grief than any fertilizer or spray ever will. Next time, we're looking at the easiest shrub roses to grow if you're just starting out. If this saved you from a bad placement, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss it.